We don't subscribe to the old school way, nor the new school way, only the optimal way. The 80-20 Baseball Experience with Coach Bo.
Welcome. This is Coach Bo with 80-20 Baseball. I hope you all are doing extremely well, and I hope you're making the most out of today. Hey, our goal here at 80-20 Baseball is to help players, and mainly the coaches that lead those players, toward discovering better, faster, more efficient ways to play the game of baseball, and in particular for those coaches to discover better, faster, more efficient ways to coach, i.e. better, faster ways to create an awesome team culture while properly developing better all-around players and teams. There is a lot of clutter in the baseball coaching community. There just is. There's a lot of clutter everywhere in life, in the news and everything. It seems like there's a lot of clutter, so much information, so many dots. The trick, I think, is, or the key is, I should say, the important thing to do is to declutter, find the key points, and then connect those dots accurately. And that's what we're doing here at 80-20 Baseball. And that's what I'm giving and sharing with you through these podcasts and through the website, through all the training videos and on Twitter. It seems like a lot of people in the baseball community are focused on being unique rather than aiming to simplify a game that's already been around for 150 years. So I use my 30 plus years of baseball experience and a lot of my own time each day to filter through. Now, I say that I enjoy baseball. I enjoy studying it. I've always enjoyed studying it since I was about 4 years old. Scorekeeping games at Dodger games when I was 5. I just always been into it. So it's not necessarily something I look at as work. It's a passion, but it does take up quality time away from my family and my kid and things like that. So with that said, I do enjoy it, and I spend a lot of time trying to filter through all the information out there, all that clutter, and trying to vet it and to give you a clean, orderly, fast-paced version of it so it allows you to focus on your job, your business, your family, your health, while also being able to quickly attain the baseball wisdom that you want and that you need to be super successful. Now for part 1 of episode 32. And to start, I have a recommendation for you. QB wristbands for pitchers and catchers. Quarterback wristbands for catchers and pitchers. Now, catchers have been using these for a long time in baseball, and the coaches simply either yell out a number, a 3-digit number, typically it's 3 digits, or they use their hands and signal 3 digits to the catcher if the environment's a little noisier or they're a little further away. But now I'm seeing pitchers with these, or I'm reading about pitchers that are using these. I want to say there was a high school in Florida that was using it, but I'm sure other schools and other places these are starting to be used. I've been a big fan of making the game faster. I definitely don't want to change the rules, like add an extra base. Like I don't want a 5th base out there, and I don't want batters to have to hit the ball on a field like cricket where they can hit it backwards. I don't want to make drastic changes, but I'm all for making small little adjustments to make the game more fun, to make the game more enjoyable. I look at it like this. You can have the greatest idea for a business, or you can think your business is awesome and it's the best business idea out there. But if the customers don't like it, and the customers don't show up, and the customers don't use your business or your service or your product, then you don't have a business. And it's about time the baseball community stops looking at baseball like they have this indestructible product and this invincible product that will never cease to keep being played. Now, that very well may be true in our lifetimes, but the quantity of players playing and the interest in baseball is getting tested because there's so many other things out there now for players and kids to do and whatnot. Not just sports, which football's gotten more popular, head injuries and not. It's gotten more popular. Basketball is popular as it's probably ever been. And you have other sports that are picking up at the high school level, like lacrosse is something on the West Coast that's really blown up and things like that. And soccer's only going to get more popular as the MLS picks up and gains some speed. And, there's something to be said. I remember Colin Cowherd talking about soccer games and why he liked soccer games. This was years ago. It had to have been like 10 years ago. I remember Colin Cowherd, the radio, host that was with ESPN, I think he was with Fox Radio now, Colin would say that he likes soccer over baseball simply because he knew he could sit down, watch a soccer game, and be out of there in 2 hours. When I checked that, he may not have said he liked it, but he can see how fans liked it. Something like that where it was, hey, soccer, you sit down, you got a 45-minute first half, you got about a 15-minute break, and you got a 45-minute second half, game over for the most part. Now, if I was soccer, I'd cut out that overtime, keep it a little shorter, or just go right into penalty kicks. I love penalty kicks. With baseball, we want to keep the speed and the pace of the game moving along as fast as we can without getting players hurt, and adding a quarterback wristband for pitchers and catchers, even if the coach is not calling the pitches. So what you would have is, for those of you that aren't super familiar with what I'm talking about, the pitcher would have a wristband with a card on it, and the card, you can replace the card inside a little sleeve with a little card, and an index card, or just a little, maybe even, smaller than that. And it has a little chart, easy to follow chart, and it shows a number that corresponds with a pitch, or they can easily look down and be on the same page as the coach from the dugout who's yelling out the number, or the catcher who's yelling out the number, or just maybe holds up the finger. So you can do this with catchers. Say you don't want the coach calling pitches. I'm not against coaches calling pitches. I think catchers, especially youth catchers, have so much to work on, and none of them have it perfected, that I don't think it's really important for them to learn how to call a game, especially because they don't have a scouting report on the other team. And I think that you can learn it, and definitely maybe during scrimmages, but if you're trying to actually win a game and also show a catcher how to call an accurate game, you're assuming that they're watching Yadier Molina and Buster Posey and these great, pitch calling catchers call games. You think that catchers are sitting there studying catchers and how they call games. No, they're not. They're just not. They're watching how they frame. They're watching their footwork on their throwdowns. They're watching how they block pitches. They're watching how they set up. But they're really not sitting there digesting and analyzing how catchers, professional level and the best in the world, are calling a game. So it's really a trial and error. So I don't think it's a bad idea for coaches to call pitches, especially at the youth level and the younger levels. So catchers, as they get older, will kind of have an idea of how to attack, hitters. And then I think if you're going to do that, you can talk to the catcher and say, this is why we did this sequence here, or this is why we're attacking this hitter here. So when they're older, pro ball, college ball possibly, and they're calling their own games, they're going to have an idea. It's not necessarily something I think is imperative at the lower levels. So the coach can just simply, with these wristbands, not just on the catcher, but now on the pitcher, can just simply yell out a 3-digit number or 2-digit number. Typically it's 3 digits, and the catcher and the pitcher simultaneously look at their cards on their arms, and they're both on the same page. Pitcher takes a deep breath and makes the pitch. There's no signaling to the catcher, signaling to the pitcher when there's, say, for example, when there's guys on second, or when you have the Astros stealing all your signs, or whatever team is looking or using whatever. It just, you have to go through multiple signs with a runner at second, yada, yada, yada. This just speeds up the pace of play, and it gets the accurate pitch out there. It doesn't cheat for the pitcher. It doesn't make the mound closer to home plate. He's still got to execute. It just takes out some of the busy work, just like we do every day in business, just like all of you are looking to do in your business. You're trying to cut out that middle step. You're not looking for a hack. You're looking for just something to kind of, is there a step in the middle that we can just do without that won't mess with the authenticity of the game? So I recommend starting to use these quarterback wristbands. I call them quarterback wristbands because quarterbacks have used them for a long time, especially the college level. The pro guys use them a little bit, but they have headphones on. They have radios on their helmets. They've had those on for 25 years. The NFL quarterbacks have had the coaches talking into their ears through their helmets, through a radio, through their helmet, basically like a built-in AirPod in their helmet for like 25. I think it's like 1994. We're going on like 26 years, 27 years of doing that. And baseball can't get with it. Now, I did read something recently that the SEC is starting to do this. I love it. In fact, I think they should just go straight to letting pitchers and catchers wear AirPods or some Bluetooth device. They're just all on the same page. Now, that would be a little tricky if you had the catcher calling the pitches because the batter is going to be right there listening. But if you had the coach calling the pitch from the dugout, he could just put the clipboard up to his mouth, cover a little, and just say fastball away. And I read this, and I believe it was the SEC. It was an SEC Southeastern Conference coach was saying, this is great because now they can actually get a little bit more cute with their pitch calling. Now, I always did this when I called pitches using my face and arms and hands and body when I was calling pitches to the catcher. I always had nuances to it. So it wasn't just out, fastball away. It might have been fastball away 6 inches, fastball out extended, fastball up and in, fastball up, fastball middle up, fastball down middle. So know there was different nuances and a lot of coaches do that, but man, let's just take all that out. Give the quarterback wristband to the pitchers and the catchers, and let's speed up the pace of play here. So I recommend, if you're in charge of a league, allow this. If you're a coach, do this. It's so easy it doesn't take any learning, and you can go online and look up YouTube, and you can look and see how this works if you're not already familiar with it. Most of you probably are. Let's get the pitchers and catchers on board. I don't mind the coaches calling the pitches, especially at the youth level. Not that the pitchers have a lot of pitches at the youth level, or at least they shouldn't, but at least it gives you something to go off of quickly and efficiently, and it doesn't mess with the authenticity of the game. It cuts out all sloppy sign stuff and things that they can learn. And some of you might say, well, they need to learn how to give signs. It's not that complicated to give signs. In fact, I think any catcher that's like 18 years old or in high school or even in college, if they never did use their signs, I think they could figure it out pretty quick. Let's start thinking of these catchers as extremely smart players, which most of them all are. It's a very challenging position. It's a very difficult position from the mental side. So, quarterback wristbands. Now, part 2. This is super, super, super important. Coaches, listen closely. Please have a balanced approach when coaching your team. More specifically, sometimes you got to be a disciplinarian. Sometimes you need to be more complimentative. You need to compliment your players more. Some days, sometimes during practice, some parts of practice, you're going to compliment them more. At some parts of practice, sometimes during the games, some other times during the season, you're going to be a little bit more of a disciplinarian. And sometimes you just have to relax and be quiet and just simply observe and let the players play, insofar as they don't break any major rules, such as like disrespecting a teammate or lackluster hustle. Those are things you need to step in immediately, even if you've told yourself, hey, I'm going to just lay low for 15 minutes and just observe, or I'm going to lay low during the scrimmage and observe. If somebody disrespects a teammate or a coach, or there's lackluster hustle, you need to break that silence, hop on that, instill and implement that discipline and consequence. And if you don't, then you're saying it's okay. Remember, rules are not what you tell them are the rules. It's what you follow up with consequences. It's what you enforce. It's not what you preach. It's what you tolerate. It's not what you preach. It's what you tolerate. So having a balanced approach when coaching your team, more often than not, almost always, and I study coaches day in and day out, and I have for the longest of time. For 25 years, I've closely studied coaches. They're almost always on one end of the spectrum or the other. They're just super hard on their team. There's not a lot of smiling. There's a lot of yelling. And then, everything is getting reprimanded and this and that, which I do absolutely believe in having certain rules that cover hustle, that cover disrespect, that cover being on time, punctuation, and attendance at practice and games. And then after that, I tell you, there's not very many rules that really need to be implemented. I think if you stick to those and you just discipline and enforce those at all times, you're not actually going to be having to be a disciplinarian that often, especially if you pick great quality players come tryout time or at the beginning of the season when you're assembling your program or your team. Now, some coaches coddle players. So there's not some, but a good amount of coaches tend to coddle players. Everything is okay and everything is this and everything is going to be all right. You coddle them, and that's definitely not what they need. Not in this world. Everything is about coddling, especially in the school systems. Hey, I spent 14 full years in a school system in a lot of different schools, and I know what goes on. There's a lot of coddling going on. You don't want to be too far one way or too far the other. You also don't want to be somebody who needs to just feel like you got to compliment every time and you got to discipline and correct every time. So there's the relaxed, quiet, and just observant situations where coaches can be relaxed and quiet. So you don't want to be over disciplinarian. You don't want to be over correcting everything. You don't want to be over complimentary. You don't want to be, over complimentative. Compliments. There's some coaches out there, and you know who you are. You don't give any compliments at all. You very rarely give compliments, or just here and there, maybe a few every practice. And that to me is just that's flat out ridiculous. You should be looking for the good. You should be looking to compliment. And you should also be looking to keep and enforce the 3, 4, 5 rules that are paramount to your team's structure and team culture and discipline and things like that. Have a balanced approach. Don't be Bobby Knight, and don't be everything's all good Pollyanna, Coach Pollyanna. Don't be on either end. Be in the middle. It doesn't have to be an equal split. It's going to be a situational dependent approach. Like almost everything, you're going to be situationally reading, and you're going to read the situation, then you're going to have an approach that fits that situation situation. But don't go out there with this, I'm going to yell, I'm going to correct everything, I'm going to discipline, overly discipline. Or on the flip side, don't go out there and say, I'm just going to compliment everything and everything's all right. And hey, they didn't hustle. And hey, Johnny, it's okay. I understand. I know you're frustrated. No. He didn't hustle. He's out. He's out the game. There's no, well, I know you were frustrated with that. And I know this. I know you slammed your helmet. And I know you back talked the umpire because he made a bad call. No. Johnny's out the game. Johnny back talked the umpire. He's gone out the game, sitting on the bench for the rest of the game. So at the same time, you don't want to also be letting them not do certain, you don't want to be so strict all the time, and you don't want to be overly coddling. So find the happy medium. Look to compliment. Have certain rules. Like I said, disrespectful talk of teammates or coaches, lack of hustle. Those are just massively big for me. And I think for all coaches that understand what really makes a team tick and what can really erode a team. And then you have your times where you need to be quiet and observant. Don't go out there with the same exact default approach all practice long in terms of, I'm going to come out here and just start yelling. And second, don't bring your personal problems to the field, coaches. If you're not having fun out there, you need to stop coaching. I think the players would be better off going out there and sandlotting it, meaning going out there and just letting Benny the Jet Rodriguez run the show. Let one of the players run the show rather than you if you're going to go out there and yell and be rude and not make it fun for them. But you don't also want to go out there and just everything's okay. Everything's not okay. And these kids today need to hear this. And I say kids, I mean all the way through pro ball. They need to understand that, no, that's not okay, and you're out the game, or that's not okay, and we're going to bear crawl, or that's not okay. And if it happens X amount of times, say you have I believe in a tiered consequence system for most things, for almost all rules, a tiered consequence. But they get to a certain tier 3, tier 4, it happens, boom. Then you got to ask them to, not ask them, but you're going to have to remove them from the team. Hopefully it never gets to that. And it usually never does, especially if you build relationships and build a why with the players and they understand you, then that you care about them. So part 2 here is have a balanced approach when you're coaching your team. When you walk out the practice, just know you want to be balanced. Don't be Bobby Knight. Don't be, the coddler. Don't be on either end of the extreme here. Be somebody who goes out there looking to compliment, looking to smile, looking to have a good time, but enforces the rules every single time they're broken. That's why I don't think you should have a plethora of rules. I think you should have a certain amount of rules, and you can go to 80-20 baseball. I got a whole rules all broken down with the exact consequences, literally for you to print out and give to your team. And in fact, it has a parent signature paper that you can bring to your preseason meeting. It's got everything you need. It's done. It's ready to go. It has every single rule that I believe you should have and every single consequence that goes with it. It's a tiered consequence, very specific, easy to read. It's 4 pages. You have it ready to go. Boom. There you go. It's dialed in for you. You don't even have to think it. Let me do all the work on that over all the years and just you go and print it and use it. You also should work on, like I said, the last thing I'm going to hit on here in part 2 is that you should work on just going out there some days and just being quiet and relaxed and just observe. Now, if you're a quiet coach, like I played for a Hall of Fame college coach, Coach Snow, and Coach Dave Snow was very quiet. And there was times I wish he would have spoke up and just coached more. But many coaches at the youth level overcoach. They overcoach everything. So have a balanced approach. Don't go out there yelling at everything, and don't go out there ignoring things that go wrong or ignoring issues or being extra coddling. These kids definitely don't need extra coddling. They do need compliments, they do need self-esteem, but they also need discipline, and they need a practice environment that challenges them. All right, part 3. Make sure, and this is specific to a situation in the early stages of practice or before a game, your pregame routine, your throwing program, your throwing routine. Make sure your players don't start too close to each other. Why do I say this? I've seen thousands of practices, and more often than not, a team that has not been coached up on this, or a team that definitely a team that doesn't have a structured throwing routine. And even those that have a structured throwing routine, a throwing program, I've seen this way more often than not. The players play catch. They start too close together. For example, high school players, they're playing on 60, 90 fields, 90-foot bases. So shortstops are typically making a throw from 100 feet, 110 feet, sometimes 120 feet. The throws can be fairly long, and they start by playing catch at 30 feet. And what happens, and the problem with this is that they have to modify their throwing motion. They have to modify it so it's not athletic and it's not normal. You don't want your players starting to play catch too close together together, it's going to produce a motion or almost inherently facilitate them into throwing it like a dart. And baseball and darts are not anything alike when it comes to throwing. Now, you might say, well, we do pickles every once in a while, or every other game we have a pickle and they kind of throw it. Yeah, they don't wind up and throw the ball. It's a dart. But hey, that happens. For one of those throws, you got 500 normal throws. You do not want your players starting too close together, because what you're going to see is their elbow's going to sink a little. It's going to come in a little closer to their body like they're throwing a dart at a dartboard. And they're going to do this because if they do a full speed throw, or I should say a full motion throw, it's typically going to lead to a full speed throw, and they're too close to their partner and they want to take it off. They want to back it off. Now, one thing that really needs to be done and is super important before you ever get to your throwing routine or your throwing program, whatever you call it. I call it a throwing program. But if you call it a throwing routine, hopefully you have some kind of structure to this. If you don't, again, over at 8020baseball.com, I have one for every single age. It has a preseason, early preseason, in-season, pregame throwing routine. It's structured. Every single throw is broken down by distance and type. Now, there's some flexibility when it comes to long toss in there, but other than that, it's very structured, and it's a process. You need to have a process. You need to have a routine, and from there, you can adjust it and assess it. If you are not warming up your arms before you throw the baseball, you're doing it wrong. You're flat out doing it wrong. You need to warm up the arms before you throw a baseball. You don't warm up by throwing, and this is a kind of an adage that's getting tossed out a lot now. Don't throw to warm up to throw. And this is so important. It can be as simple as arm circles, maybe some arm scissoring, or some light plyo balls with, windmill type of arm movements. Again, I have it all on 8020baseball.com. You can do different things to warm up the arms. It should be a progressive warm up. It shouldn't just be full go from the get-go, but that goes with anything, even for youth players that warm up faster. Even young guys, young gals, they warm up quick. They don't need like us older people, older coaches, older people. We need that. We need to break it in for a few minutes to get the warmth going. But even though that they can warm up quickly, you shouldn't neglect it or minimize it. Now let's break it down here. 5 to 10 throws, like the throws I discussed, the dart-like throws, the modified throwing motion. 5 to 10 of those throws before every power, at the beginning of every practice, or before every game, at the beginning of the throwing routine. This can add up to hundreds and hundreds of suboptimal throws. It creates bad movement. It creates bad movement habits. It takes a thrower from athletic, or at least trying to build an athletic thrower with good extension with the arm, using the bigger muscles. Then you get a pitcher or a thrower that starts throwing it like a dart, using their triceps or this. They get in close to their body. They're taking out some of the bigger muscles. And in fact, they're actually putting themselves in a little bit of jeopardy when it comes to arm health. Again, it's not a huge arm health issue, having these modified type throws or these dart-like throws, but what it's going to do is it's going to create bad throwing habits. Where that comes into play, I believe, is accuracy and overall strength down the road, but really a lot of it has to do with accuracy and control and command of your throws. But that's neither here nor there in this podcast. What I wanted to just really make a point at is that the majority of baseball teams that I've seen over the years start playing catch too close together, too close to their partner. And here's the answer to it. So some of you guys are like, well, how far should I go? And I'm going to finish up with this suggestion. This is the actionable item of this part 3. They should go far enough where they can make a normal athletic throwing motion from the get-go, but not so far that they're over-laboring to make the throws. For example, a high school player, I wouldn't recommend their first throw be from past 90 feet, but I wouldn't have them start off, and many high schools over the years I've seen that do this, many high school teams, even strong, physical, well-coached, well-conditioned arms, these teams will start throwing it like 40 feet, 30 feet, 50 feet. I think you should start no less than 50 feet for a high school, a varsity team. Your arms should already be warmed up, not fully throwing warmed up, but it should be warmed up. It should be warmed up definitely well enough to make those first throws without any hesitation and with like a full athletic throwing motion. 50 feet for varsity, professional pitchers, college pitchers. I would not throw my first throw from less than about 55 feet, depending on how strong they are and how warmed up it is. Another thing that plays into this is the temperature. So on a warm day in Florida or Texas or in Louisiana or Arizona, or a warm day anywhere for that matter, the distance can be a little further, maybe 5-10 feet further, because the goal is to have a nice athletic throwing motion from the get-go so the players can get out a little bit further, not too far, but just far enough where they can maintain an athletic throwing motion. Now, on the flip side of the hot temperature, if it's in a cold temperature, a cold weather area, especially early preseason for baseball, wintertime, then hopefully you warmed up the arm accordingly, which means your warm-up, your throwing warm-up, and your arm warm-up is going to be extended. Your full body should be warm up a little bit more of an extended time or length if you're in a colder environment. But nonetheless, you should still be out far enough to make an athletic throw, but it might be 5 feet, 10 feet closer because of the coldness and the body not quite maybe being there with the temperature, not just the core temperature, but the body and the shoulders and things like that. All right, no dart-like throws to start the throwing program. Make sure the kids' arms are warmed up. Make sure the players' arms are ready to go so they can make an athletic throw from the get-go. Obviously, they're not going to be like at 150 feet or 100 feet, but they should be able to make athletic, normal throw. It's not going to be 100% intensity, but it shouldn't be 30% intensity, 40%. It should be like 60% intensity. There's no reason to throw something with less than like 50, 60, 70% intensity from the get-go because they should already be warmed up and ready for those movements. And on the flip side, all those bad, habits, all those bad movements that come with throwing it like a dart or slowing it down, dropping the elbow, kind of taking a little off of it, aiming it sort of thing, that comes along with those closer, shorter throws, non-warmed up throws. Those are going to create bad habits as the player moves forward that are going to be harder to overcome because that's hundreds and hundreds of suboptimal throws throughout the season. All right, part 1, part 2, part 3, get those quarterback wristbands for the pitchers and catchers. Get that pace of play going. Get rid of all this signs and da-da-da-da-da. Just let's play baseball. Let's not sit there and play how many different ways we can touch our nose and ears and things like that, and how many signs the catcher has to give down so the runner at second doesn't sit there, and then calling timeout and going out to the pitcher and switching up, the indicator or hey, now we're going fourth sign, not second sign, yada, yada, yada. Let's keep the speed and the pace of play going, but get the same amount of action involved. Let's get those little busy tasks out of the way, just like we do in the business world. We wouldn't think twice in the business world about getting rid of those little needless tasks on the side. Let's keep the big picture in mind. Part 2, have a balanced approach when coaching your team. Don't go out there and yelling all the time and correcting all the time. And don't go out there and coddle them all the time and compliment them all the time. Also mix in being relaxed and quiet and just observe from time to time. Maybe you set a timer, a 10-minute timer, and say, I'm not going to say anything to the team for 10 or 15 minutes unless it's a major rule gets broken. All right, so go out there with a balanced approach. Discipline when you need it. Be firm, but only when you need it. Compliment. Look for the good. Correct players, but not every time. Don't feel like you need to overcorrect them. We talked about this in other podcasts. And maybe take a second and be quiet. Observe it. Now, some of you coaches that are super quiet out there, and you know who you are, or you just kind of observe, and especially as the coaches get older, what I found is the coaches at the youth level overcoach, and the coaches at the professional level and the college level, this is a general rule, of course, is they undercoach. So the higher up they get, especially pro game, it's like they undercoach, and at the youth level, they overcoach. And I get it, at the youth level, there's more to learn, and at the professional game, in the upper levels of baseball, there's going to be less to teach a player that they don't already know, but you can get more minute and acute with it and more specific and a little more advanced. So at the end of the day, you can always talk a lot about things. So that's just kind of a general rule. But youth coaches, don't overcoach. Don't over-coddle, don't over-discipline, don't over-correct. Get a balance. And same with professional coaches and college coaches. Find that balance. And then in part 3, do not play catch. Do not start playing catch. Do not start your throwing program too close together. Way more often than not, the teams I've seen do this, the teams I've coached, they don't do it once. If I coach that team, they're not doing it, especially after day 1. I tell them exactly where to start. So it's not a guessing game. It's a structured throwing program. Hey, it's been great having you guys along today. Take good care of yourself, take good care of your family, and I'll see you at episode 33.
This has been the 80-20 Baseball Experience.
This is a really good team, and so you have to earn everything you have against them and take opportunities when they present themselves.
Take it to the field.